There was a moment, exactly 1 second, when Avery Blake thought everything was normal. She woke up to the gentle hum of air conditioning, the silk sheets cool against her skin, and the faint scent of citrus and something floral lingering in the air. She blinked once, sunlight bleeding through the edges of blackout curtains. Her head throbbed, sure, and her mouth tasted like a forgotten bottle of Prosecco left open for 2 days, but nothing seemed catastrophically wrong. Not yet. Then she sat up, and the world tilted. Her skull pulsed like a warning siren as memories flickered in broken fragments, dancing lights, champagne fountains, a yacht deck spinning beneath her feet, someone whispering in her ear with a British accent and laughter. Hers.
Loud.
Unhinged.
Free.
There was a diamond ring on her finger, a massive one, the kind of ring that sparkled like a threat. And lying beside her, tangled in white sheets and completely unbothered by the morning sun or the weight of reality, was Maeve Callahan, bare-legged, bare-shouldered, and infuriatingly beautiful, her blonde hair a soft mess of curls against the pillow. "Oh my God," Avery whispered. Maeve's eyes blinked open, green like absinthe, wicked and lazy. "Morning, wifey," she said, voice husky with sleep and amusement. Avery froze.
No.
Yes. Maeve stretched her arms above her head, the sheets slipping just low enough to make Avery's brain short-circuit. "You were very enthusiastic about it, too. You practically dragged me down the aisle." There was an aisle? It was more of a red carpet rolled out on the yacht's helipad. The officiant was wearing a Versace bathrobe. It was all very tasteful. Avery's hands flew to her head. Her curls were a mess. Her eyeliner was that glitter, smudged to her temples. Her voice came out strangled. "You're lying." Maeve rolled to her side and picked something up from the nightstand. A glossy document. Avery stared as Maeve waved it casually. A marriage certificate. Monaco official seal. Witnesses listed. Time: 4:17 a.m. Bride 1, Maeve Vivian Callahan. Bride 2, Avery Eliza Blake. Avery's jaw dropped. Her name, in print, legally bound to her. "I don't even like you," she whispered. "You kept telling me I was dangerously charming and that my lips should be illegal." Maeve's grin widened. "I think you compared me to a criminal and then said you'd be happy to go to jail for me." Avery groaned and flopped back on the bed, covering her face with both hands. This could not be happening. This was supposed to be a girls' trip. A yacht party in Monaco with her college friends. A chance to unwind before her new job at the art gallery in London. Not a drunken detour into legally binding chaos. And definitely not with Maeve Callahan, the scandal magnate heiress whose family practically printed money through oil and whose reputation included a laundry list of tabloid fuel disasters, nightclub bans, broken engagements, and a brief stint in a Paris jail for allegedly stealing her own Lamborghini. Avery had spent the first 2 days of the yacht trip actively avoiding her. Everyone had warned her, stay away from Maeve. She's chaos and couture. And yet, champagne, laughter, a slow dance under string lights, a kiss by the railing. What do we do now?" Avery mumbled, trying not to panic. Maeve was already sliding out of bed, wrapping herself in a silk robe like a goddess who didn't give a damn about consequences. "We get breakfast. You like croissants, right?" "Maeve, relax," Maeve said, sipping from a glass of something orange and bubbly. "We'll get it annulled. Or not. Depends on how cute you are over mimosas." "This isn't funny." "You're right. It's hilarious." Avery stared at her, heart pounding. And that was when Maeve's smile softened just a little. "Look, I get it. You're freaking out. Totally valid. But believe it or not, this might actually work out."
"How?"
"Because," Maeve said, setting down her glass and walking over to sit on the bed's edge, her eyes suddenly sharp with purpose, "my family's been breathing down my neck for months. They want me to grow up, take the company more seriously, stop embarrassing them. And now," she lifted Avery's hand, their rings glinting side by side, "I have a wife.
Stability.
Commitment. Image control." Avery blinked. "You want to stay married?" "Just for 6 months. Play the part. We live together. Do a few public appearances. You get a very generous bank transfer for your time. Then we part ways. No hard feelings. Avery stared at her like she was insane. Maybe she was. But that same flutter in Avery's stomach, panic, curiosity, a strange pull, didn't feel like fear anymore. It felt like the moment before a storm. And if I say no, then we tell the tabloids it was a joke and laugh our way out of it. And if I say yes? Maeve leaned closer. Then, darling, you move into my penthouse in Monte Carlo. We make the whole world jealous, and you might just have the most interesting 6 months of your life. Avery hated that her pulse skipped. She hated that Maeve smelled like expensive perfume and bad decisions. She hated that part of her wanted to say yes. But most of all, she hated that she already knew she would. Avery wasn't sure what she expected when she agreed, half delirious, still mildly hungover, and absolutely blackmailed by the absurd beauty of Maeve Callahan, to give this whole fake marriage a chance. Maybe a few awkward breakfasts. A brief, bland legal process. A tidy conclusion before anyone outside that Yacht even heard about it. But what she got, instead, was paparazzi. Paparazzi and champagne. And 4 different stylists in her suite by 9 a.m. She has great bone structure. One said in French. But the dress, non. We burn it. What is happening? Avery whispered to herself, perched in a velvet armchair while someone curled her hair and another fitted her for a Chanel jumpsuit she didn't ask for. You're going to brunch, said Maeve, waltzing into the room like a fever dream in a cream suit and diamond-studded Louboutins. She held an espresso in one hand and her phone in the other. With me. And my mother, who, by the way, thinks this whole thing is divine. Avery blinked. Your mother? Try not to look so terrified. Veronica loves a surprise wedding, especially when it gets her face back in Tatler. Avery stood up too fast. The world tilted. I didn't agree to family. Technically, you agreed to marry me, which includes all the terrifying consequences that follow. Maeve stepped closer, eyes gleaming. Breathe, darling. This is your new life. You might as well look breathtaking while you suffer. Avery didn't have time to argue. An hour later, she was stepping out of a sleek black car in front of the Hotel de Paris, dressed head to toe in borrowed couture, walking beside Maeve as flashes from cameras exploded around them. Reporters shouted questions. Maeve didn't blink.
She waved.
She smiled. She leaned in and whispered to Avery through her teeth, Now would be a good time to look madly in love with me. Avery turned. Maeve's lips were a breath away. Her skin glowed like gold. And for a second, the world shrank to just them. Her heart skipped like a drum in a storm. Then Maeve smirked and pulled her into the hotel. The brunch was hell. Or maybe heaven. Avery couldn't decide. Veronica Callahan was intimidating, elegant, and impossible to read. The woman sipped champagne like it was water and complimented Avery on her Midwestern charm, whatever that meant. You've already done wonders for Maeve's image, she said coolly. No scandals in almost 48 hours. A record. Maeve kicked her under the table. Avery smiled tightly. Glad to help. When it was over, and the press had gotten their photo ops, Maeve dragged Avery through a back corridor, laughing. That wasn't so bad, was it? Avery glared. I feel like I survived a lion pit in heels. Well, welcome to my life. That afternoon, Maeve whisked her away in a helicopter, because of course, she had a helicopter, to a cliffside villa in Ease with an infinity pool and a panoramic view of the Mediterranean. We're throwing a party tonight, she said, already stripping off her heels and flopping onto a chaise. Our wedding reception. Very exclusive. Very last minute. Just 30 or so of my closest bad influences. Avery opened her mouth to argue, but then she saw the sparkle in Maeve's eyes. The mischief. The hunger for life. And God help her, she smiled. You're insane. And you married me. What does that make you? That night, the villa pulsed with music, golden lights and bodies in designer fabrics, champagne towers, laughter echoing off the cliffside. Avery stood on the balcony, looking out at the sea, feeling lighter than she had in years. For once, She didn't think about being perfect or careful. She just existed. And then Maeve found her. You're hiding. Observing. Same thing. Maeve stepped beside her, close enough that Avery felt the heat from her bare shoulder. Her voice softened. You looked happy for a minute. Avery hesitated. I was. Silence. The kind that hummed with something unspoken. Maeve turned her head, her lips inches from Avery's ear. You're dangerous when you smile like that. Avery's breath caught. So are you. The music swelled. Someone jumped into the pool with a cheer. And in the chaos, Maeve's hand brushed against Avery's, slow and deliberate. Fire bloomed under her skin. Avery didn't pull away. The penthouse was obscene. Avery stepped into Maeve's Monte Carlo residence, like she was crossing the threshold of a palace carved into the sky. Glass walls opened onto a terrace the size of an average New York apartment, with panoramic views of the marina below and the soft glitter of the Mediterranean in the distance. Every surface gleamed. Marble, glass, gold accents. Art pieces that probably cost more than Avery's annual salary adorned the walls. And in the center of it all, lounging barefoot on a cream leather sofa, a flute of champagne in hand, was Maeve. Welcome home, wife. Avery dropped her bag on the floor, stunned. This place looks like it was decorated by a Bond villain with excellent taste. Maeve raised a brow. That's exactly what I was going for. Living with Maeve Callahan, even temporarily, was like being dropped into an alternate universe, one fueled by bottomless bank accounts, last-minute flights to Milan for a dress fitting, and a fridge stocked exclusively with imported berries and 3 different kinds of truffle butter. Avery tried to stay grounded. She made lists. She set boundaries. She asked politely if Maeve could stop walking around the penthouse in lingerie at noon. Maeve laughed in her face. Darling, if you want me to cover up, you'll have to stop looking like you're about to combust every time I wear silk. Avery ignored the heat that flushed her face and retreated to her room. Technically her room, though she couldn't shake the feeling she was being watched even behind closed doors. And she was. Maeve, for all her teasing, noticed everything. She noticed how Avery always triple-checked the locks before bed. How she drank her coffee black and too fast, like she didn't trust herself to slow down. How she had a little scar on her left knee and a habit of rubbing it when she was nervous. Maeve didn't say these things. She just watched. And poked. And pushed. We have a gala tonight, she said one afternoon, appearing in Avery's doorway with a garment bag draped over one shoulder. Charity auction. Billionaires. Bored royals. Breathtaking scandals waiting to happen. That sounds exhausting. It'll be fun. You'll wear this. Maeve held up a midnight blue gown that shimmered with tiny embroidered stars. And I'll behave myself. Probably. Avery took the dress, sighing. Are we expected to be couple Y? Very. There's a press table. And I may or may not have told the organizer that you're a celebrated art curator from New York who left it all for love. You didn't. I did. But don't worry. I also said you're brilliant, mysterious, and fluent in 3 languages. Just smile and drink champagne. No one questions a beautiful woman in Dior. That evening, under the soft glow of chandeliers and the hum of string quartets, Avery played her part. She wore the dress. She smiled. She let Maeve guide her through the crowd with a hand at the small of her back that lingered just a little too long. Every time Avery spoke, people listened. Every time she laughed, Maeve's eyes lit up like she'd never heard anything more beautiful. Love what you've seen so far and want to help me keep creating these awesome stories on this channel? Then subscribe and hit the bell. Your subscription supports the channel and makes sure you get more exciting stories. And for a few dangerous hours, Avery forgot it was all pretend. You're good at this, she whispered between sips of champagne. At what? Lying. Maeve turned to her, lips close enough to brush her cheek. Maybe I'm not. Avery's breath caught. A photographer snapped a photo.
Flash.
Smile. Her heart thudded in her chest. When the auction began, Maeve leaned in and whispered in her ear. Do you think I should bid on the Van Gogh? Do you like the Van Gogh? Not really. But you raised your eyebrows when you saw it, so now I'm considering spending 4 million euros just to make you smile again. Avery nearly choked on her champagne. You are out of your mind. But look how pretty you are when you laugh. After the event, back in the car, Avery stared out the window, pulse still racing. Maeve sat beside her, quiet for once. And then, soft as a secret, you looked happy tonight. Avery turned. I was. It suits you. The silence stretched. The air between them throbbed with something unnamed. Dangerous. Beautiful. Maeve reached for her hand, fingers brushing gently. Do you want to come to the after party? Avery blinked. There's an after party? Maeve's smile was slow and wicked. There's always an after party. The real question is, will you let me show you what the night looks like when no one's watching? The after party wasn't on any map. It didn't have a name or an address. It was whispered through guest lists, passed through encrypted texts, known only to those who thrived in the liminal space between midnight and dawn. Maeve's black card got them in without a word. The elevator shot them to the penthouse floor of an abandoned hotel-turned-underground sanctuary for Monaco's untouchable elite. Inside, it was another world. Smoke curled through the air, like perfume. Velvet draped the walls. The music was deep and slow, a pulse beneath the skin. Men in designer suits and women in glittering gowns lounged on couches like Roman gods. There were mirrors, candlelight, diamonds. And somewhere in the center of it all, Avery Blake forgot who she was. Maeve handed her a glass of Dom Perignon without a word, her fingers brushing Avery's in that casual, electric way she had perfected. Avery drank. She felt the bubbles bloom on her tongue and dissolve behind her ribs. You've entered the jungle, darling, Maeve murmured against her ear. Don't get lost. I'm not afraid of wild things, Avery replied, surprising even herself. Maeve's eyes darkened. Just a little. She reached out and tugged a loose curl behind Avery's ear, letting her thumb graze the corner of her jaw. God, I wish you meant that. Avery tilted her chin, heart hammering. Try me. Hours passed in heat and color. Avery danced, really danced for the first time in years. Her body moved without apology. Her dress clung to her like a second skin, catching the strobe lights in flashes of silver. Maeve never left her side. She didn't have to. Her presence burned like a second sun. They didn't kiss. Not yet. But they circled each other like planets pulled by gravity too old to understand. At one point, Maeve leaned in, their foreheads touching as they swayed to a slow, sultry rhythm. You look like sin, she whispered. You look like trouble, Avery murmured back. Fair trade. Their hands found each other without asking. Not for show. Not for cameras. Just need. Just heat. Just them. Around them, the party blurred into something abstract, a backdrop to the rising tension between bodies, between hearts pretending not to beat harder. On the rooftop, hours later, the sky still clinging to its final dark blue before dawn, Avery stood at the edge of the world. Below, Monte Carlo glittered like a promise. She felt Maeve behind her before she heard her. You didn't run away. I thought about it. What changed? Avery turned.
You.
This. I don't know. A long silence stretched between them. Wind tangled through Avery's hair. Maeve stepped closer. I'm not good at this, she said quietly. At what? Being real. Letting people see past the headlines. I use parties and champagne and chaos because it's easier than letting anyone close. Avery's breath caught. So, why let me? Because you married me, Maeve said, a flicker of something broken behind her smirk. And now I can't stop seeing you. Everywhere. Even when you're not looking at me. Avery's heart stuttered. Maeve, don't. She stepped back. This isn't part of the deal. We were supposed to be beautiful and untouchable and temporary. And what if it's too late for that? Then you're dangerous, Avery Blake. And you're scared. Terrified. Maeve's voice cracked like glass under pressure. Avery closed the distance between them. For the first time, no laughter, no teasing, no games. Just two women standing in the silence between everything they were and everything they could become. The kiss didn't happen.
Not yet.
But the space between them shrank until even the air felt intimate. Maeve brushed Avery's cheek with the back of her hand. Go to bed before I do something reckless. Avery searched her eyes. What if I want reckless? Maeve swallowed. Then stay. The morning after the after-party, the headlines hit like a bomb. Heiress caught in rooftop rendezvous with mystery bride. Intimate photos expose passion behind secret marriage. Avery stared at her phone, still in bed, hair tangled, heart slamming. The article was everywhere. Crisp shots of her and Maeve pressed close on the rooftop, laughing, dancing, whispering things only two people lost in each other could say. One image, in particular, had already gone viral. Maeve leaning in, her lips inches from Avery's neck, their hands entwined like the world didn't exist. She barely had time to panic before Maeve barged into the room, sunglasses on, robe loose over silk pajamas, holding an espresso like it was a weapon. Well, she said, throwing a newspaper onto the bed. At least they used your good side. You said there weren't going to be cameras. I said there wouldn't be official cameras. Welcome to my world, darling. Privacy is a luxury even I can't buy. Avery sat up, her chest tight. Your family is going to kill you. Maeve took off her sunglasses slowly, revealing the first real trace of tension behind her eyes. Correction, they're going to kill us. Within hours, a damage control strategy had been deployed. Maeve's PR team, Avery's confused assistant in London, and, worst of all, Veronica Callahan had organized a restorative, private honeymoon trip to the Swiss Alps.
Just the two of them.
5 days. One chalet. Dozens of cameras waiting to catch their reconciled love on display. They're sending us into the snow to prove we're not imploding, Maeve said, pouring herself a second drink as they packed. Because nothing says healthy marriage like enforced isolation and frostbite. And we're just going? Maeve glanced at her over her shoulder. Do you have a better plan? Avery didn't. Not really. Not when her name was now splashed across tabloids, tied to the most unpredictable woman in Europe, and not when her heart had started to betray her in the quiet spaces between eye contact and almost kisses. The Callahan private jet landed in a silent stretch of white-capped mountains by afternoon. The chalet they were driven to was a masterpiece of wood and stone and roaring fireplaces, built for discretion and decadence. Inside, for throws, panoramic windows, and, of course, one bed. You've got to be kidding me, Avery said, frozen in the doorway. Maeve dropped her duffel onto the floor. Look, I can take the couch if it helps you sleep at night. You? Sleep on a couch? Maeve raised an eyebrow. You think I'm that fragile? I think you're used to getting your way. And I think you're starting to like me for it. Avery flushed. Maeve's smirk softened. Look, Maeve said, stepping closer, voice low. We can make this work. No touching. No drama. Just 5 days of pretending to be two blissfully in-love wives enjoying the snow. You with your books and nervous pacing. Me with my wine and sexual frustration. That last part wasn't in the contract. It is now. They lasted 12 hours before the tension broke. It started with a storm, a whiteout blizzard that knocked out the satellite signal, turned the outside world into a blur of snow, and canceled any chance of escape. Then came the wine. Then the fire. And then the question. Why me? Avery asked, sitting by the fireplace, legs tucked under her, cheeks flushed from the heat, and 2 glasses of wine. Maeve, sprawled on the rug beside her, stared into the flames. What do you mean? You could have picked anyone to fake marry. Why me? Maeve turned, propped herself up on one elbow. Because you didn't care about the name. The money. You looked at me like I was a problem, not a prize. You're a problem. And you're the first person who hasn't tried to solve me. They stared at each other. The fire crackled. The silence between them bloomed into something electric. Then Maeve sat up, closer now, her knees brushing Avery's. You think you're the careful one, she said softly, the one playing it safe. But I've seen the way you look at me when you think I'm not watching. I don't. You do. Maeve's voice dropped. And every time you do, I want to break my own rules. Avery swallowed. Her heart was a thunderstorm. Then Maeve leaned in, slow, so slow, her lips hovering by Avery's ear. There's no paparazzi here, no press, no contract between us right now. Just you and me. And a bed that's too big for pretending. Avery froze. Maeve pulled back just enough to meet her eyes. Say yes. Avery didn't. She moved. The space between them vanished in one breath, and when Avery kissed her, it wasn't tentative. It wasn't polite. It was months of tension igniting into wildfire. Maeve moaned softly against her lips, fingers threading into Avery's hair like she'd been waiting for this since the moment they met. They didn't stop to think. Not that night. They burned. And outside, the storm howled. The first thing Avery noticed was the silence. Not the silence of emptiness, but the kind that follows a storm, thick, heavy, humming with what's been said and done. Her body ached in the best ways, warmth still lingering beneath her skin, and the scent of wood smoke and Maeve still clung to the sheets. She opened her eyes slowly, uncertain. The fire had burned low in the hearth. Snow still blanketed the windows. And beside her, tangled in the same sheets, was Maeve, face turned toward her, golden hair tousled, lips parted slightly, one hand resting dangerously close to Avery's hip. She looked peaceful, untouchable, like sin and salvation wrapped in silk. Avery stared at the ceiling. What had she done? The question wasn't about regret. Not really. It was about consequences. Because the second their mouths met, the second Avery let herself fall, the rules had changed. And if there was one thing Maeve Callahan didn't do, it was rules. You're thinking too loud, Maeve murmured, voice hoarse with sleep. Avery didn't move. Are you going to pretend it didn't happen? God, no. Maeve rolled onto her back, stretching like a cat. I'm going to think about it every time you walk into a room. Maeve. Relax. We're married, remember? I'm allowed to be obsessed with my wife. We weren't supposed to let it get complicated. You think that was complicated? Maeve turned her head, eyes sharp and playful. That was gravity. Avery sat up, pulling the blanket with her. We have to go back today. To Monte Carlo? To reality. Tragic. Maeve sighed, propping herself on one elbow. You could just stay in this cabin with me forever. Let the press think we ran away and became lesbians in the woods. Maeve.
Fine.
But you're going to miss me the second we land. She was right. Avery didn't want to admit it, but something about the quiet, snowy bubble they'd lived in for the past few days had started to feel safe. And now it would end. The plane ride was quiet. Maeve slept with her head tilted against the window, sunglasses on, arms folded. Avery pretended to read a magazine but kept staring at the ring on her finger. By the time they landed, the paparazzi were already waiting. Shouts, flashes, microphones, every headline wanting to know about the scandal, the romance, the fairy tale. Maeve squeezed her hand once, tightly, before they stepped out together. Avery kept her smile painted on. She didn't look at Maeve once. That night, back in the penthouse, the silence returned, but it was different.
Edged.
Restless. Avery unpacked in silence while Maeve disappeared into the master suite. Minutes later, a knock at the door pulled Avery out of her daze. It wasn't Maeve. It was a courier. Envelope. Thick, elegant. Her name handwritten in gold ink. Inside, a formal invitation and a letter. She read it once. Then again. The letter was from the director of the Modern Art Museum in Berlin. A prestigious curatorial residency. 6 months. Fully funded. A career-defining opportunity. One she'd applied for months ago and forgotten. Her chest tightened. It would start in 3 weeks. 3 weeks. 6 months in Berlin. Away from Monaco. Away from Maeve. Away from all of it. She didn't know how to feel. She didn't know who she was in this moment. The woman who wanted stability, or the one who had kissed chaos in front of a roaring fire and wanted more. Later, she found Maeve on the terrace, drink in hand, eyes on the night sky. You're quiet, Maeve said. I got an offer, Avery said. Berlin. Art residency. Maeve didn't look surprised. That's amazing. It starts soon. Are you going? Avery hesitated. I don't know. Don't stay because of me. That stopped her. Maeve turned, finally meeting her eyes. Seriously.
Don't.
I'm not worth that. You don't get to decide what you're worth to me. Avery. I'm not saying I'm staying. I'm saying
I don't know yet.
and you don't either. Maeve stared at her, expression unreadable. Then she said softly, You changed the rules, you know. So did you. A long silence stretched between them. Then Maeve stepped closer. No teasing. No act. Just a whisper. Too close to ignore. Come to bed. Not to pretend. Just to be with me. Just tonight. Avery exhaled, then followed her inside. Paris was dressed in gold. The Callahan Foundation's annual winter masquerade ball was the kind of event whispered about across Europe. Invitation only, held at the Palais Garnier, with floors of marble, orchestras in every hall, and chandeliers that had seen emperors fall in love. Avery had never felt so exposed while wearing a mask. Her gown was silver, sharp at the waist and soft at the hem, like moonlight wrapped around her body. The mask, black velvet with crystal accents, hid her eyes but not her expression, not her uncertainty. Maeve, beside her, wore a custom-tailored tuxedo that redefined elegance. Midnight blue with black lapels, her blonde hair slicked back, lips painted a shade of red designed to destroy empires.
She didn't wear a mask. Of course she didn't.
The mask would cover the best part, she had said with a wink, tapping her own mouth. Avery had smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. Because tonight, they weren't just performing for the press. Tonight, the stakes were higher. Everyone who mattered was watching. Business tycoons, royal family members, Veronica Callahan. And the rumors were louder than ever. Do they actually love each other? Is it real? Do you think she's just after the money? Avery heard them all, even through music and laughter and champagne. And the worst part? She didn't know what she would have answered. Maeve had been perfect all night. Chivalrous. Funny. Beautiful. Attentive. She whispered things in Avery's ear that made her blush, kissed her hand like it meant something, and smiled like Avery was the only woman in the room. And maybe she was. But somewhere between the dance floor and the velvet staircases, Avery began to feel the weight of the lie again. Because Maeve had told her not to stay. Because Avery hadn't told her about the Berlin offer. Because something inside her was terrified that she wanted this to be real more than she wanted anything else. She excused herself halfway through the gala, walking the long halls alone, passing mirrors that reflected a woman she no longer fully recognized. When Maeve found her, she didn't say anything at first. She simply stood in the doorway, watching. Then, softly, You look like you're about to run. Avery didn't turn. I don't belong here. You keep saying that. But here you are. Wearing a dress that cost more than my rent for a year, pretending to be the wife of someone who could have anyone, and somehow I'm the one falling apart. Why does it have to be pretend? Avery finally turned, and the pain in her eyes stopped Maeve cold. Don't say things like that if you don't mean them. Maeve stepped closer. What if I do? Then you're cruel. Avery. Because you're the one who made the rules, Maeve. You're the one who said 6 months. No feelings. Just a deal. So don't look at me like this is my fault. Silence.
Sharp.
Cracking. Maeve reached up and touched Avery's cheek, tentative. What if I was wrong? Avery's breath caught. Her lips trembled. Then tell me that without a mask, without a room full of people watching, without this dress, without the press, without the contract, without everything else. Tell me you want me when there's nothing to gain. Maeve's hand fell. I'm trying. Try harder. Avery turned and walked away. The music played on. The ballroom glittered. The world kept spinning. But for the first time since Monte Carlo, since that night in the snow, Avery felt completely alone. Later that night, hours after the ball, a knock came at her door. She expected silence. Or a servant. Or nothing at all. But it was Maeve. Not dressed for a gala. Not smiling. Not performing. Just Maeve. Hair down. Eyes bare. I don't know how to do this, she said, voice shaking. But I can't keep pretending I don't care if you leave. Avery stared at her. Maeve stepped inside, slowly, closing the door behind her. I'm not good at this. I've never been. But I see you, Avery. I see when you laugh. I see when you think no one's watching. And it scares the hell out of me because, for the first time, I don't want to lose someone who actually sees me back. Avery swallowed hard. Maeve, if I asked you to stay, really stay would you? Avery stepped forward, just enough to touch her fingers. Ask me when you're ready to hear the answer. Maeve's eyes burned. And then, softly, she whispered, stay. Please. But Avery didn't say yes. Not yet. Avery didn't sleep after the ball. Her phone buzzed constantly. Articles, photos, mentions, speculation. Some tabloids praised them. Others tore them apart. Headlines screamed love story of the century, while comment sections whispered about publicity stunts and power plays. She ignored them.
Or tried to.
But nothing drowned out the weight of Maeve's voice the night before. Stay. Please. It haunted her.
Because she wanted to. God, she wanted to.
But was wanting enough? The knock came before breakfast. She expected room service. Instead, it was Veronica Callahan. Cold.
Precise.
Dressed in all black like mourning was fashionable. Get dressed, she said with clipped efficiency. You and Maeve are coming with me. There's a meeting. What kind of meeting? Avery asked, still in a robe, hair unbrushed. The kind that decides the rest of your life. 30 minutes later, she found herself in a penthouse boardroom surrounded by cold marble, colder glances, and members of the Callahan family empire. Lawyers, shareholders, siblings with perfect posture and calculating eyes. Maeve sat beside her, silent, jaw tight. She hadn't even said good morning. Veronica stood at the head of the table, voice sharp as glass. This marriage, while charming in its scandal and convenient for short-term headlines, remains unofficial in the eyes of the law. A private ceremony in Monaco at 4 a.m, no witnesses we can verify, and no legal filing? That's not marriage. That's theatrics. Maeve's mouth opened, but her mother raised a hand. Enough. The board wants stability. Investors want proof you've changed. And if you want your seat to remain at this table, if you want access to your full inheritance and any decision-making power in this company, then you and Avery will make this marriage legal. On paper. Immediately. Silence fell like an avalanche. Avery's heart stilled. Maeve turned toward her slowly. You can't be serious, she said to her mother. You want me to force her to marry me? She already did, Veronica said coolly. We're just making it official. Otherwise, your future here ends. Avery stood. You're blackmailing her. I'm protecting our legacy. Maeve rose too, her voice strained. You can't dictate my personal life like this. Your personal life is a liability. This, she gestured toward Avery, is your solution. Take it or leave it. That night, the silence between them wasn't safe anymore. It was jagged, tired, full of things unsaid. Avery packed in silence, her suitcase open on the bed. Maeve leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, mask cracked. You're leaving. What did you expect? That you'd at least let me explain. Explain what, Maeve? That this was all a game until your family made it real? That I was useful until they demanded papers? You think I planned this? I think you let it happen. I think you let them weaponize something that was already fragile. Maeve stepped closer, voice low. It's not fragile.
Not to me.
I'm not playing anymore, Avery. Then say what you want. I want you to stay. I want you to marry me for real. I want this to be more than a contract and more than a lie and more than a headline. I want us. Avery stared at her, tears burning behind her eyes. You're only saying that because now you have something to lose. Maeve flinched. That's not true. Isn't it? I was going to ask before the board meeting. I swear. Then you should have. Maeve's voice broke. Please don't go. Avery looked away. I need time. Time is exactly what they won't give us. Then maybe this was never real. Avery turned, walked past her, suitcase in hand. Maeve didn't follow. She just whispered something Avery would only let herself remember later. You made me better, and I ruined it. Avery left. For the first time since that drunken night in Monaco, she didn't look back. Berlin was gray. Icy wind curled around Avery's coat collar as she walked the museum steps alone. The invitation letter crumpled in her bag like a secret she wasn't sure she wanted to keep. She had arrived 3 days ago. A flat overlooking the Spree. A studio filled with light. A blank canvas, both literal and metaphorical. It was everything she thought she wanted. And none of it felt right. She tried to immerse herself in the work. The art. The silence. But every brushstroke reminded her of Maeve's voice. Every morning without a sarcastic comment or a stolen glance felt like absence had taken up permanent residence in her chest. She didn't reply to Maeve's texts. Not when they were casual. Not when they were desperate. Not when Maeve finally stopped sending them and the silence became worse than the storm. It wasn't about punishing her. Avery just didn't know how to trust what they had. If it was ever real. Or just another one of Maeve's beautiful, reckless disasters. Meanwhile, in Monte Carlo, Maeve unraveled quietly. No parties. No wine. No headlines. The penthouse was too clean, too quiet, too hollow without Avery's presence. She walked the terrace at night, rereading the last text she had sent weeks ago. Tell me if you're safe. Just that. No answer. Maeve went to meetings she didn't care about, sat at boardroom tables, and signed documents she didn't read. Her mother watched silently, saying nothing, but her disapproval hung like fog in every room. For the first time, Maeve felt small inside her own life. Powerless. Unseen. And then, she did something she never did. She asked for help. A call to her assistant. A request. Quiet. Honest. Desperate. The gala was 3 days away, an annual art benefit held in Berlin, a collaboration between museums and philanthropists across Europe. Maeve had never attended before, but this year, her name was on the list. Avery found out through her director. You know her? He asked casually, sipping espresso. She donated a painting in your name. Anonymous, of course. But I figured it out. Avery blinked. She what? An original Hennessy. Worth over $1 million. Hung it in the East Wing. Said it reminded her of you. Avery visited the piece that night. It was abstract. Raw. 2 brushstrokes bleeding into each other, neither overtaking the other, just tangled. Conflicted. Impossible to separate. She stared at it until her throat tightened. When the night of the gala arrived, she didn't plan to go. She dressed out of obligation, not hope. A simple black dress. No expectation. No intention to speak to Maeve. Not even sure she would show up. But Maeve did. And the moment she walked in, the room stopped. She was in a tailored black velvet suit, her hair down. No jewelry, no entourage. Just her. Just Maeve. Raw. Silent. Scared. Avery saw her before Maeve saw her. Watched the way her eyes scanned the room, like she was looking for something she had lost. Avery stepped behind a column, heart racing. But Maeve walked right past the champagne, the art, the people, and stopped in front of the painting. The one she had given. She stared at it for a long time, and then said quietly, I thought maybe if I gave them something beautiful in your name, it would be enough. Avery didn't mean to step forward. Her feet moved before her mind caught up. It wasn't, she said softly. Maeve turned, breath catching. Her eyes were glassy but proud. I didn't come to beg. No. I came to see you. Why now? Because everything I had before you meant nothing. And everything after you feels empty. Avery swallowed. You lied. You used me. You let them turn me into leverage. I know. So, why should I believe anything you say now? Maeve stepped closer, slowly, carefully. Because I gave away the one painting I ever loved just to remind you of what we were. And I didn't put my name on it because this isn't about headlines. Or image. Or control. It's about you. It's always been you. Avery's heart fractured. Her voice shook. You said you don't do love. I don't, Maeve whispered. But I think I've been doing it anyway, every time I looked at you, and forgot how to lie. Avery blinked back tears. Say what you came here to say, Maeve. Maeve took a breath. I love you. Silence.
Sharp. Honest.
Painful.
Real.
Avery didn't answer. Not with words. She stepped forward and pressed her forehead against Maeve's. Eyes closed. Lips trembling. One hand on Maeve's chest, right over her heart. And for one suspended moment in time, the world stopped spinning. The hotel room was quiet. Not like Monte Carlo. Not like the chalet. Not like any of the places where they'd kissed or touched or danced in the dark while pretending the world wasn't waiting outside. This was real.
Raw.
Unfiltered. Avery stood by the window, arms wrapped around herself, staring at the Berlin skyline like it had answers. Maeve sat on the edge of the bed, hands clasped, eyes down. Neither had spoken since the gala. Since Maeve had whispered, I love you, like it might break her open. It did. But Avery didn't say it back. Not because she didn't feel it, but because she wasn't ready to give it freely if it came with consequences she hadn't agreed to. You're quiet, Maeve said finally, voice rough. You said what you needed to say, Avery replied. Now I'm trying to figure out what to do with it. Maeve stood slowly, walked over, careful not to get too close. What if I told you I wanted more than a second chance? What if I told you I want to marry you, really marry you, no cameras, no family, no deals? Just us. Avery turned. You're serious? I've never been more. And your family? They can burn. That's easy to say now. But your mother practically holds your legacy by the throat. And last time she got involved, I was the one sacrificed. I know, Maeve said, stepping closer. And I hate myself for letting that happen. But I won't let it happen again. I've made arrangements. The company is being restructured. I gave a my board vote. Avery blinked. You what? I stepped down. Maeve's voice was calm. Final. They said I couldn't choose you and keep my seat. So I chose you. Silence.
Heavy.
Holy. Maeve, I didn't do it to win you back, Maeve said quickly. I did it because I'm tired of choosing things that make me feel like less than who I am. You never asked me to change.
But you made me want to.
And I can't be that version of myself inside the Callahan machine. Avery's heart clenched. And what do you want now? Maeve smiled, small and trembling.
A ring.
A ceremony. Just us. I'll sign a prenup, if that helps. Hell, I'll let you write it. No pressure. No timeline. But I want to stand in front of you and say yes. Fully awake this time. And I want you to say yes because you want to, not because you feel trapped. Avery stared at her, tears stinging the edges of her eyes. Maeve, A knock at the door interrupted them. Maeve hesitated, then opened it. Her assistant.
Pale.
Flustered. You need to see this, she said, holding out a tablet. Maeve read. Her face went white. She turned the screen to Avery. It was a press release. Callahan Oil. Callahan heir to be wed in private estate ceremony next week. Official union to secure position in company's new structure. Avery blinked. What is this? Maeve swallowed. They announced the wedding anyway. But you said, I didn't approve this. My mother's pulling strings. Making it look like we're moving forward to secure investor confidence. Using me one last time. And me, Avery whispered. Again. No. Maeve stepped forward, urgent now. I'll cancel it. I'll call a press conference. I'll go public and say we're not doing it. And what if I want to? Avery said suddenly. Maeve froze. What? What if I say yes, not because of the company or the press or your mother, but because I love you? Maeve's breath caught. You love me? Avery nodded, slow. I think I have for a while. But I wasn't going to say it until I was sure you weren't going to run again. I'm not running. Good. Avery stepped close, voice steady. Then here's my condition. Maeve held her breath. We do the ceremony. But it's ours. We hijack their plans. We say the words we want. We invite who we want.
And when I say yes, it won't be for them.
It'll be for you. Maeve smiled through the tears. God, I love you. Show me, Avery whispered. Not with press releases. Not with rings. Show me with something that isn't shiny or strategic. Show me with the part of you that's afraid. Maeve leaned in slowly, pressed her forehead to Avery's. I've already shown you that part. It's yours. And when they kissed this time, it didn't taste like apology or desperation. It tasted like home. The press conference was supposed to be simple. One final appearance. A show of unity before they vanished into wedding preparations far from cameras, headlines, and corporate puppeteers. Maeve and Avery had agreed on everything. The speech, the tone, the calm before the ceremony storm. But nothing with the Callahans ever went as planned. The room was a sea of suits and spotlights. Reporters packed into the luxury hotel ballroom in Monte Carlo, murmuring, waiting. Maeve stood at the edge of the stage, dressed in an ivory silk suit, hand steady in Avery's. She had never looked so composed.
So ready.
Avery, in a sleek black dress, chin high, fingers locked with Maeve's, felt the truth of them like a pulse beneath her skin. This wasn't performance anymore. This was real. This was theirs. Until Veronica Callahan walked up to the podium first. Without warning, without invitation, the air shifted. Avery's stomach dropped. Maeve's grip tightened. Ladies and gentlemen, Veronica began, her voice calm, regal, ruthless. I'd like to thank you all for being here to witness the continuation of the Callahan legacy through my daughter's upcoming wedding to Avery Blake. Maeve stepped forward, confused. Mother, but Veronica didn't stop. In celebration, we're pleased to announce that both brides will be joining the new philanthropic division of the Callahan Foundation, something Maeve and I have discussed extensively. A symbol of unity, responsibility, and maturity. The cameras flashed. Reporters scribbled. Avery turned sharply. You discussed what? Maeve was frozen.
Silent.
You told her yes? Avery whispered. I didn't, Maeve said quickly. I never agreed to this. Veronica smiled, cold. Don't be dramatic, Maeve. This is what we discussed. If you wanted support, if you wanted control over your name, your future, your funding, this is the condition. We made our own conditions, Maeve said through her teeth. I stepped down from the board. And I stepped in to clean up the mess. Avery took a step back. Is this true?
No.
I swear. Maeve turned to her. I didn't know she'd do this.
I didn't say yes.
I would never. But her voice cracked. She threatened to cut all funding for the foundation. The charity projects. She said you'd be dragged through the media. That we'd be buried in lawsuits and headlines. I told her we'd figure it out without them. But you didn't tell me, Avery whispered. You didn't trust me enough to fight it together. I was trying to protect you. You lied to protect yourself. I didn't lie, Maeve said, desperate. I hesitated. I hoped it would go away. I didn't want to bring it into our space. Into us. Avery stepped back. Then maybe us was always a fantasy. Don't say that. Maeve's voice broke completely. The cameras were still flashing. Veronica stepped down, satisfied, as if she'd done nothing more than straighten a crooked picture frame. Avery turned, walked off the stage. Out of the ballroom. Maeve chased her. Avery, please. Not here. Avery turned down a corridor, through a private door, out onto a balcony above the city lights. The cold air hit like a slap. Maeve followed, breathless. I didn't know she'd ambush us like that. But you knew she might. Avery's voice was calm now.
Too calm.
And instead of preparing with me, you waited. You hoped she'd behave. You made decisions about our future without including me. Because I was scared, Maeve shouted, finally cracking. Because every time I think I have you, something comes between us. And I didn't want it to be me again. I didn't know how to fix it, so I avoided it. I've done that my whole life, Avery. That's who I've been. But I'm trying to be different.
For you.
Avery turned. Then prove it.
How?
Choose me over your name. Your money. Your reputation. Again. But this time, do it in front of them. Show them that I'm not leverage. That I'm not a symbol. That I'm the woman you love. Maeve's chest rose and fell like a storm. Okay. What? Okay. Maeve stepped back inside, marched up the stage, took the microphone. I'd like to make a statement, she said. The room went silent. Effective immediately, all wedding events connected to the Callahan name are cancelled. The Callahan Foundation will not be involved. The Callahan family will not be invited. This wedding is mine. And Avery's. And if that means I lose everything else, then so be it.
Gasps.
Murmurs. Veronica stood, livid. Maeve. No, Maeve said, turning to face her. You don't get to control me anymore. The press exploded. But Avery was already walking back into the room. Already moving toward Maeve. Already crying. Not because of pain, but because this time, Maeve had chosen her. The chateau was hidden in the hills above Nice, buried behind tall cypress trees and ivy-covered gates. Maeve had found it through a friend of a friend, private, quiet, unreachable. Exactly what they needed. She didn't ask Avery. She just booked it and said, let's disappear for a few days. Avery hadn't protested. After the press conference, the headlines had spun out of control. Maeve Callahan breaks from Dynasty for Love. Callahan wedding cancelled. Rebel heiress defies family. Avery Blake, from art curator to the woman who changed everything. They hid in the back of a car, phones off. Silence between them not heavy this time, but necessary. Restorative. When they arrived at the chateau, it was dusk. The walls were warm with candlelight, the air filled with lavender. There was a small kitchen, a clawfoot tub, a balcony overlooking a vineyard swallowed by mist. It didn't feel like hiding. It felt like healing. For 2 days, they barely spoke about the wedding. They cooked, walked barefoot, slept in late, read in silence. Maeve sat on the balcony with a journal she didn't let Avery read. Avery painted again for the first time in weeks. There were no schedules, no questions. Just them. And something like peace. Until the letter arrived. It came by private courier, addressed in Veronica Callahan script. Maeve didn't open it right away. She found it on the front table, stared at it for hours. That night, Avery noticed her pacing. What's wrong? Maeve handed her the envelope. Avery read the first line, then the second, then stopped. She's offering you a full reinstatement, Avery said, on the condition that we separate quietly. No scandal, no divorce, just distance. Maeve nodded. She wants me to walk away from you. Again. She's giving me everything back if I do. And Maeve met her eyes. I'm not even tempted. Avery believed her. But something inside her cracked anyway. It's never going to stop, is it? The pressure. The whispers. The trade-offs. Not if we keep playing by their rules. And if we stop, then it's just us. Against whatever comes next. Avery exhaled. Sat on the bed. I want to believe it's that simple. It's not, Maeve said, sitting beside her. But it's real. Later that night, after Avery had fallen asleep curled into her side, Maeve slipped outside and made a phone call. One she'd been avoiding for a long time. Her voice trembled, but she didn't hang up.
Hey, she said, quiet.
It's me. A pause. Then, yes. I know. I need you to hear something. I'm getting married.
For real this time.
And I'm not asking for approval. I'm not asking for money. I just want you to know I'm trying to be better. I think she's the one who makes me want to be better. Another pause. Her eyes filled. Okay. Yeah.
Goodbye.
She returned to bed quietly. The next morning, Avery found her by the garden, eyes red, face open in a way Avery had never seen. Who were you talking to last night? Maeve looked at her, the vulnerability raw and fragile. My father. Avery blinked. I haven't spoken to him in years. Not since he left. But I needed him to know I'm not the girl he walked away from. I wanted someone who mattered to me to know I'm doing this differently. Avery stepped closer. You didn't need to prove anything. Maybe not, but it mattered. For me. Avery touched her face gently. I've never seen you like this. I've never been like this. I like it. Then marry me before I turn back into a disaster. They both laughed. And for the first time in weeks, it was laughter without fear underneath it. They spent the rest of the day sketching wedding ideas. A ceremony in Tuscany. Barefoot vows. Only people who knew them without titles. Simple. Private.
Sacred.
But as they sat together with coffee, planning the color of flowers and whether they'd walk down the aisle together or separately, a call came. Maeve stared at the screen. Her jaw tensed. It's the lawyers. Avery paused. Do you want to answer? No, she declined the call. But later, as she scrolled through an email forwarded by her assistant, she went quiet. What is it? Avery asked. Maeve looked up. There's one final clause I didn't see before. From the foundation transfer. For my mother. A clause that might still give her legal control over the Callahan brand, even without me. Avery's eyes narrowed. What kind of clause? A retroactive annulment clause. Tied to PR fallout. If the marriage becomes reputationally volatile, she can petition to reverse the company's split and take it all back. And who defines what's volatile? Her. The weight of it hit them both at once. The wedding would be the trigger. If it was quiet, small, soft, it would be safe. If it made headlines, if anything unexpected happened, if anyone leaked it, Veronica could step in. She's still trying to control you, Avery said, fury in her voice. Even now. She can't stop me from marrying you, but she can punish you for it. Let her try, Maeve said. She's not invited. Tuscany was quiet in the mornings. Light rolled in over the hills like gold poured from a jar, softening everything it touched, the olive trees, the vineyards, the stone walls of the villa Maeve had rented for the ceremony. There was a stillness there that felt sacred, a kind of peace that Avery hadn't known she was craving until she breathed it in. The wedding was in 3 days. The guest list was small, no press, no sponsors, no suits. Just the few people who had seen them for who they really were. Avery's best friend Marla arrived first, bringing too many shoes and not enough patience. Maeve's cousin Jude came next, tattooed, chaotic, fiercely loyal. A local string quartet was scheduled to arrive the next day. A bakery in Siena was delivering the cake. Everything was perfect, except Maeve wasn't sleeping. She wandered the villa at night, barefoot in a robe, restless. Avery found her in the garden once, staring up at the stars with a glass of wine she hadn't touched. You okay? Avery had asked, wrapping her arms around her from behind. Maeve leaned into the touch but didn't speak. She just whispered, You're everything good I never thought I'd have. Avery kissed her shoulder and held her tighter, but something in Maeve stayed distant. It was the look in her eyes, the way her smile faltered just before it reached her mouth. On the second morning, it all cracked. Avery was on the terrace reviewing some last details with the officiant when she heard the sound of tires crunching over gravel. A car. Uninvited. Unannounced. She stood slowly, heart hitching. A man stepped out. Late 30s. Impeccably dressed. Sharp eyes. He walked with too much familiarity through the villa gates. Jude, who had been sitting near the pool, stood instantly. What the hell is he doing here? Maeve appeared behind Avery, stopping cold.
Her voice was low.
Flat. Elias. Avery turned. You know him? Maeve's jaw tensed. He's no one. That's not what you used to say, Elias replied, his voice silk and venom. We were engaged. Avery froze. Her stomach turned.
What?
Elias stepped forward, ignoring the tension, the storm brewing.
Relax. It was years ago.
Short-lived. Explosive. Ends like ours don't get closure. They just rot quietly. Get out, Maeve said. Now. I came to wish you luck, he said, but his smile was too sharp. And maybe remind you that not all your messes stay buried. You were the mess, Maeve said coldly. And I cleaned you up, remember? Does she know about New Year's in Prague? Elias asked, turning to Avery. Or St. Tropez. Or what really happened with the art theft in Marseille. Stop it, Maeve snapped.
She's not like you, he said.
She thinks you're whole.
Good.
Safe. But you're still just a spoiled girl with a wine bottle in one hand and a fire in the other. Enough. Maeve walked toward him. Jude stepped in front, but Maeve raised a hand. Let him speak. Let him try to destroy this. Because I'd rather it break now than let him hang over our future like a ghost. Elias smirked. That's more like the Maeve I remember. Then you don't know me at all, she said. Because that girl would have let you in, poured another drink, and pretended it didn't matter. But now I know what love actually looks like. And it doesn't look like you. Avery was silent.
Still.
Her chest a drumbeat of pain and panic. Elias left with a shrug. No drama. Just a storm planted in the earth and left to bloom. Maeve turned slowly, eyes brimming. I should have told you. About him. About what I used to be. Why didn't you? Avery asked, voice quiet. Because I was ashamed. Because you see me like I'm already becoming who I want to be. And I didn't want you to see the worst of me, even if I'm still fighting to unlearn her. Avery stared at her for a long time. You told me once you didn't do love, that it scared you. It still does, Maeve said, but not enough to run anymore. I don't care about your past, Maeve. I care that you trust me with it, that you bring it to me instead of letting it hit me in the face on my wedding week. I know. I'm not asking for perfection, Avery said. I'm asking for honesty. Always. Maeve nodded, her voice breaking. Then here's the truth. He wasn't the worst thing I've done. But he was the last thing I did before I realized I didn't want to be that woman anymore. You're the line, Avery. Before you and after you. Avery exhaled, crossed the space between them, took Maeve's face in her hands. I'm not walking away.
Not now.
Not after everything we've fought through. You want to be better? This is how. Let me see the broken parts. Let me love you through them. Maeve broke. Silently. Beautifully. And when they held each other, it wasn't just forgiveness. It was rebirth. The morning of the wedding began in silence. Not because of nerves or fear or second thoughts, but because there was nothing left to prove. The wind moved through the vineyard like it was blessing the ceremony in secret. The sun poured through the clouds slowly, like it knew it had nowhere better to be. The chairs had been placed beneath the old cypress trees. The altar was simple, a wooden arch wrapped in olive branches and soft ivory flowers. Maeve stood at the edge of the courtyard in a tailored white suit with a silk lapel, her hands shaking only slightly as she watched the final details fall into place. Jude was adjusting his cufflinks nearby. Marla was checking the playlist again for the 5th time. Avery hadn't come out of the bridal suite yet, and Maeve was dying to see her. But she waited. This time, she waited. In the suite, Avery stood barefoot in front of the mirror, her gown soft and flowing, her curls loose around her shoulders. No veil, no tiara, just her, all her. She looked at herself and whispered, "Don't run. Not this time." And she didn't. The music started. Avery stepped out onto the stone path lined with candles and old wooden chairs. Everyone stood. Maeve turned, and time broke. She wasn't ready for it. The sight of Avery, the softness, the strength, the peace in her eyes. Her throat closed around 1,000 words, but the only one she said was, "Hi." Avery smiled. "Hi." They met at the altar, hands finding each other like they always had. The officiant spoke, but neither really heard it. It was all white noise around the pounding of their hearts. Then came the vows. Maeve went first. Her hands trembled slightly as she pulled out a folded piece of paper. "I wrote something," she said. "Of course you did," Avery whispered, teasing gently. Maeve smiled, then read. "You were supposed to be a mistake. A wild night. A fix. A joke. But somehow, you became the first thing I ever wanted for real. You made me want to be someone who could be loved honestly, without spectacle, without running, without hurting the people closest to me just to survive. I'm still learning. I will keep learning. But if you let me, I want to learn next to you. For the rest of my life." There wasn't a dry eye in the crowd. Avery's voice trembled as she began. I didn't want this, she said. Not in the beginning. You terrified me. You irritated me. You got under my skin in the worst and best ways. But somewhere between the pretending and the real, I saw you. And the more I saw, the more I realized I didn't want to look away. You make me brave. You make me laugh when I forget how. You make me want more. Not bigger, not richer, more real. I promise to fight for you, even when I'm scared. I promise to call you out when you're wrong and kiss you when you're right. I promise to choose you, over and over, even when it's hard. Maeve bit her lip, holding back tears. They were seconds from exchanging rings when a voice called out from the trees. Stop the ceremony. Heads turned. A woman stepped into view. Sleek black dress. Cold expression. Veronica Callahan. Maeve went still. Avery's heart thundered, but she didn't move. Veronica walked slowly down the path, past the stunned guests, her heels clicking against the stone like gunshots. You're making a mistake, she said coldly. This, she gestured at the ceremony, will destroy what little remains of your legacy. Maeve opened her mouth, but Avery stepped forward. Voice firm.
Clear. Strong. No.
You are the mistake. Veronica narrowed her eyes. Excuse me? You've manipulated, threatened, and punished your daughter for trying to become something you never had the courage to be. Free. You want control? Take it. But you will not take her again.
Not today.
Not ever. The silence that followed was electric. Veronica opened her mouth, then closed it. She looked at Maeve and for the first time saw someone she couldn't bend. I hope she's worth it, Veronica said. Maeve answered without hesitation. She is. Veronica turned. Left. No more words. Just footsteps retreating. When she disappeared beyond the trees, Maeve turned to Avery. You didn't have to do that. Avery smiled. Yes, I did. The officiant cleared his throat. Shall we continue? They turned back to each other. Maeve took the ring, slid it onto Avery's finger. With this ring, I choose you. Not because I have to, but because I can't imagine waking up without you. Avery slid hers onto Maeve's hand. With this ring, I take the chaos, the quiet, the past, the future, all of it. I take you. I now pronounce you. The officiant's words were cut off by the sound of clapping. Applause. Laughter.
Tears.
Maeve didn't wait. She kissed Avery.
Deeply.
Fully. Not like a show. Not like a promise. But like she was finally home. The guests stood. Champagne flowed. Music rose. The sun broke fully through the clouds. And for the first time, everything was exactly as it was meant to be. They didn't leave the villa for 3 days. After the guests had gone, and the last champagne bottle was empty, after the lights had been dimmed and the garden fell silent beneath the stars, Avery and Maeve stayed wrapped in white sheets, in soft cotton robes, in each other's arms. It wasn't about hiding. It was about savoring. The first morning as wives, Maeve woke up before Avery and didn't move for 20 minutes, just watched her breathe, memorizing the way sunlight touched the curve of her cheek. Avery stirred slowly, blinked once, then smiled without opening her eyes. You're staring, she mumbled. You're mine, Maeve whispered back. Forever. You're mine too. Terrifying, Maeve joked and Avery laughed, the sound a melody that hadn't dulled in Maeve's chest since the first time she heard it. They spent the first week of married life like that, soft, slow, deliciously indulgent. Lazy breakfasts, tangled afternoons, late-night swims in the stone pool behind the villa. Avery read aloud from poetry books she found in the library, and Maeve painted her nails a different shade every day, joking that it was the only way she'd stay still for more than an hour. They danced barefoot in the kitchen. They made love without urgency. They cooked together and burned things and ordered pizza at midnight. Maeve took pictures of Avery on film, saying she wanted to remember her exactly like this. Barefaced, radiant, laughing so hard she dropped a fork. But real life doesn't stay paused forever, and eventually, the world called them back. They moved into a townhouse in Paris, a small, sunlit space with too many windows and a view of the Seine. It had creaky stairs, a broken heater, and a lemon tree in the back courtyard that Avery named Simone. Maeve hated the smell of the neighbors' cigars, but loved waking up to the church bells on Sundays. Avery found a gallery job she loved. Maeve started quietly investing in green energy startups. No fanfare, no headlines, just action. Quiet power. A new empire, built on different rules. They kept their rings simple. They didn't renew vows or throw parties. They walked through the city like two women who had finally arrived, where they belonged, who they were, and with each other. Some nights, they still argued. Maeve forgot to reply to emails. Avery got too in her head about things. But now they fought differently. Not to win, not to wound, but to understand.
To grow.
Maeve saw her therapist every Thursday. Avery stopped trying to plan everything and started saying yes more often. They kissed in bookstores and held hands on the metro. They traveled to Lisbon for Avery's birthday and got lost on purpose. Maeve bought a dog, even though she said she hated dogs, just because Avery had once mentioned wanting one when she was a little girl. His name was Apollo, and he slept at their feet like he'd been waiting for them his whole life. One rainy night, curled on the couch, Maeve reached for a box under the table. "What's that?" Avery asked, head in her lap. "Something I didn't want to show you until now," Maeve said. She opened it. Inside, sketches. Dozens. All of Avery.
Sleeping.
Laughing. Painting. Reading. Avery stared. "You drew these?" "Every time I thought I might lose you," Maeve said quietly. "I try to keep you here." "Maeve, now I don't have to draw you anymore." Avery leaned in, pressed her lips softly to Maeve's. "You still can." They made love slowly that night, under soft blankets and soft light, with the rain tapping gently against the window and Apollo snoring somewhere near the door. The next morning, an envelope arrived.
Thick.
Elegant. Official. Maeve opened it and went still. "What is it?" Avery asked. Maeve handed it to her. The final signature from the Callahan board. "They've officially transferred everything. My name is mine again." Avery smiled. "So, what now?" Maeve sat beside her, kissed her temple. "Now I build something better. Something real. Something that looks like you. No more oil money? Only if it powers your studio." They both laughed. Maeve leaned her head on Avery's shoulder. "You know, sometimes I still wake up thinking you'll be gone. And every morning you're still here feels like a miracle I don't deserve." Avery turned to her. "You don't have to deserve me, Maeve. You just have to love me, right? Forever." Forever. Time passed. Not perfectly, but honestly. They bought a place in the countryside, surrounded by fields. Avery grew herbs. Maeve learned how to make coffee without ruining the machine. They hosted friends for long weekends. They adopted a second dog. Then, one spring afternoon, while planting lavender in the garden, Avery looked up and said, "I've been thinking." "Dangerous," Maeve teased. Avery wiped her hands and took a breath. "What if we made something? A space. For girls like us. Somewhere soft. Somewhere safe. An art and mental health retreat for queer women. No noise. No judgment." Maeve stared at her. "You're serious?"
Deadly.
Maeve grinned. "Let's do it." The first summer, they opened with 12 guests. A garden, a studio, a converted barn for yoga and painting. Maeve taught business skills. Avery led creative workshops. They laughed. They healed. They gave what they never had. One evening, after everyone had gone to bed, Avery stood watching the sunset. Maeve came up behind her, wrapped her arms around her waist. "Still think marrying me was a drunken mistake?" she whispered. Avery smiled. "The best one I ever made." "Say it." "What?" "The thing." Avery turned, eyes bright. "I love you." Maeve kissed her. "Say it again." "I love you." Once more. "Maeve Callahan, I love you so much it terrifies me." "Good." They stayed like that until the sun disappeared. And when night fell, it wasn't an ending. It was a beginning. Always was. Always would be. It had been more than a year since Maeve and Avery stood under the cypress trees and said I do with dirt on their heels and stars in their eyes. More than 12 months since Maeve had walked away from her name as it was and stepped fully into the life they built together. Not one made of champagne and headlines, but of Sunday breakfasts, mismatched socks, and soft, ordinary love. The Vineyard house had changed. New curtains, a softer rug, dog toys scattered in corners. And now, scattered among the quiet signs of their shared life, were signs of something else. Folded baby clothes on the arm of the couch, a tiny bassinet in the corner of their bedroom, a drawer full of lavender-scented blankets that had already been washed 3 times because Avery couldn't stop nesting. Maeve had grown quieter in the final weeks. Not scared, not withdrawn, just reverent.
Slower.
Grounded. As if every moment was suspended between the life she had lived and the one about to begin. She would pause in doorways with her hand on her belly, humming without realizing it. She would press her palm flat against the curve of her stomach and whisper things no one else could hear. And when Avery caught her in those moments, soft, glowing, undone, she would feel like the world had been paused just for her to memorize Maeve exactly like this. The night it began was warm for late spring. The fields outside swayed lazily under the stars, the wind barely brushing the lavender in the distance. Avery had just finished folding a stack of impossibly small onesies when Maeve called her name from the hallway, not panicked, but breathless. Avery? A pause. Then, I think it's happening. Everything inside Avery locked into place and broke open all at once. The bag was already by the door. The midwife had been on speed dial for a month. The guest room had been transformed into a soft sanctuary, candles, dimmed lights, a playlist Avery had curated full of Maeve's favorite piano tracks, and one very out-of-place Beyoncé ballad Maeve had refused to cut. Maeve leaned against the wall, one hand gripping her hip, the other still resting protectively over the place where their daughter grew. Avery was at her side in seconds. How far apart? 6 minutes. Maybe less. Okay, we've got this. You've got this. Maeve gave her a look that was somewhere between defiance and awe. She's really coming, isn't she? Yeah, baby, she is. The midwife arrived within the hour. Maeve moved through the early labor like a storm in slow motion, controlled, measured, beautiful, and terrifying in equal measure. She refused to stay still for more than 5 minutes, walking the halls barefoot, her robe clinging to her body, her breathing rhythmic, steady. Avery stayed close, not hovering but never far, her presence like a constant heartbeat in the background. When the contractions deepened, Maeve gritted her teeth, bent over the edge of the bed, muttered curses and prayers in equal measure. You're doing so good, Avery whispered over and over, hands on her back, her voice breaking even as she tried to sound calm. You're incredible. She's coming, just like we dreamed. I hate everyone, Maeve growled during one particularly sharp contraction. I hate you. I hate the midwife. I hate whoever invented babies. Copy that, Avery murmured, holding her tighter. Hate me all you want. Just bring her to me. The labor stretched into dawn. The wind picked up outside, the smell of the earth rising as rain threatened the horizon. Maeve's body rocked with pain, her voice hoarse from effort, her forehead damp with sweat. But she never gave up, never backed down. She was fierce and fragile and unstoppable. When it was finally time to push, Maeve's eyes met Avery's, and Avery had never seen such fire. I can't do it, Maeve gasped. Yes, you can. You're already doing it. I see her, Maeve. I see her coming. What if I break? Then I'll hold every piece until you don't feel broken anymore. Maeve sobbed once, and then she pushed. The world narrowed. Time cracked open. And then Luna. Her cry filled the room like thunder and church bells all at once. Maeve collapsed back, tears streaming, as the midwife placed the tiny, wrinkled, wailing baby onto her chest. Oh my God, she whispered. She's real. She's here. Avery knelt beside them, shaking, a hand pressed to her mouth. She's perfect, she choked out. She's everything. Maeve looked at her. Avery, meet Luna. The baby squirmed, blinked slowly, her face red and new and ancient. Avery kissed Maeve's damp forehead, then their daughter's impossibly small hand. Hi, Luna. I'm your mom. And the woman holding you? She's a legend. Maeve laughed, exhausted and glowing. I'm just a woman who survived you and labor.
Exactly.
Legendary. Hours passed in a golden haze. Luna fed, slept, cried, was held, kissed, wrapped in softness. The house, once so still, pulsed with new life. Maeve drifted in and out of sleep, one hand always on Luna's chest, as if making sure the world didn't steal her away. That night, the three of them curled into bed together. Maeve and Avery with Luna between them, tiny and fierce and perfect. Outside, the rain finally came, light and steady. Avery whispered, "Do you realize what we've done?" Maeve's voice was thick with tears.
Yeah.
We made a universe. And she'll know everything, who we were, what we overcame, how much we love her, and how much we love each other. Avery nodded, her hand brushing Luna's soft hair. She's not just our daughter. She's the proof that everything we survived was worth it. Maeve looked at her, her eyes full of tears and pride and peace. We're a family, Avery. We're really a family. The best one. And as Luna sighed in her sleep, a tiny sound like the wind catching its breath, the two women who once married drunk on a yacht in Monaco finally lay down not as mistake. Thank you so much for being here and for believing in this channel. If you feel in your heart, you can donate with super thanks so I can focus more and more on this project. Your support helps me keep creating these love stories and bringing them to life for you. See you in the next video.